Welcome back to the channel, coin collectors, history lovers, and curious minds alike. Today, we're diving into a little piece of American currency that many people overlook in their everyday transactions, the humble quarter dollar. But not just any quarter. We're going back to the year 1987 to explore the fascinating story behind the 1987 United States quarter dollar, specifically the one with the Philadelphia Mint mark, the P. At first glance, this coin might seem unremarkable. Just another piece of pocket change that has passed through millions of hands. But as we'll see, this particular coin carries more weight than you might expect, historically, aesthetically, and surprisingly, in terms of value. So stay with me, because what seems ordinary might just surprise you in the most unexpected way. Let's start by setting the scene. The year is 1987. Ronald Reagan is serving his second term as President of the United States. The Cold War is still in full swing, but signs of a thaw are on the horizon. American culture is booming with iconic moments, the release of Dirty Dancing, the rise of personal computing, and Wall Street's dramatic Black Monday crash in October. Amidst all of this, the U.S. Mint continues its routine operations, producing billions of coins to fuel the American economy. In 1987, the United States Mint produced quarters at 3 facilities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Philadelphia bear the P Mint mark. Denver coins have a D, and San Francisco, home to proof coinage, uses an S. In 1987, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 582 million quarters. That's a massive number. So at first glance, it may seem that this coin is anything but rare. And technically, you'd be right. There are hundreds of millions of them. But as we've seen time and again in the world of coin collecting, rarity is only part of the story. Condition, demand, errors, and historical context all play a role in determining a coin's true value. Let's talk about design for a moment. The Washington quarter's obverse had remained mostly unchanged since 1932, with only minor refinements to lettering and spacing. But even subtle changes can matter deeply to collectors. The 1987 quarters continued to feature John Flanagan's rendition of Washington's bust, a bold and dignified portrait that had become a staple of American coinage. But take a closer look at a high-grade 1987 P quarter, and you'll begin to notice the finer details, the clarity of Washington's hair, the sharpness of the lettering, the cleanliness of the eagle's feathers on the reverse. When these features are crisp and untouched, the value of the coin can jump exponentially. And therein lies one of the keys to why this 1987 quarter, despite its high mintage, can command serious collector interest. One of the things that separates a regular coin from a collector's dream is its condition, graded on what's known as the Sheldon scale. This scale ranges from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better condition. A coin graded MS 65 or higher, mint state, has never been circulated and shows no signs of wear. And believe it or not, finding a 1987 P quarter in that condition is much harder than you'd think. There's also something to be said about nostalgia. For many collectors, coins from the 1980s carry a personal connection. Maybe it was the first time they started collecting. Maybe it reminds them of childhood, of arcade tokens and payphone calls. The 1987 quarter is part of that cultural fabric. It's a little time capsule that brings people back to a different era, and that emotional connection can drive up demand. But let's not overlook the market dynamics. Coin collecting has seen a massive resurgence in recent years, especially during and after the pandemic, when people started looking for hobbies they could enjoy from home. This brought new eyes to old coins, and new value to those previously overlooked. Dealers began revisiting coins like the 1987 P quarter, reassessing their value not based on scarcity alone, but on condition, demand, and historical context. And that brings us to perhaps the most exciting part of today's video, the value. If you're holding a 1987 P quarter that has been circulated, its value is likely close to face value, 25 cents. Maybe a bit more if it's in above-average condition. But if you've somehow got your hands on a pristine, uncirculated example, especially one that grades MS 65 or higher, you could be looking at something much more significant. In fact, in recent years, collectors have paid up to $103 for a single 1987 quarter in top condition. That's right, over $100 for a coin that originally cost just 25 cents. And if that coin has a notable error or variety, the price could go even higher. For a coin that many people still toss into jars or use at toll booths, that's an incredible leap in value. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most overlooked items in our lives can carry hidden stories and surprising worth. That quarter in your drawer? It might just be part of a historical narrative you never realized you were holding. In the bustling world of coin collecting, few coins ignite the kind of quiet reverence and curiosity like the 2001 New York State quarter. A single quarter, just 25 cents on the surface, yet behind its gleam lies a story woven into American heritage, precision minting, and the deep intrigue of collectors. And today, we're diving deep into that very journey. Now, if you're holding one of these quarters right now, especially one minted in Philadelphia, with the small yet mighty P mint mark, you might be holding more than just spare change. Some recent auction prices have shocked even the seasoned numismatists, one reaching a remarkable $107. But how did a coin so common in circulation become so revered in pockets of the collector community? Let's rewind history, step by step, and explore. Our story begins with the State Quarters Program, a revolutionary initiative by the United States Mint that captivated Americans from 1999 to 2008. The idea was simple but brilliant: release a unique quarter design for each of the 50 U.S. states, in the order they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. When it came time to honor New York, the stakes were high. This wasn't just any state, it was New York, a place that represents a vibrant mix of history, culture, commerce, and resilience. Ratified into the Union on July 26, 1788, New York was the 11th state, and its quarter was scheduled for release in the third year of the program, in 2001. But this wasn't just any year, it was 2001. A year that would soon be burned into global memory due to the tragic events of September 11th. Although the coin was released earlier that year, it would later take on a deeper symbolic meaning for many Americans, especially those who held New York close to their hearts. The design itself? A stunning encapsulation of symbolism and artistry. At the forefront, you'll see the familiar outline of New York State. Superimposed on it is the Statue of Liberty, arm raised high, holding the torch that has welcomed millions of immigrants for over a century. Behind her, lines radiate outward. These aren't just artistic flourishes, they represent the many pathways that connect New York to the rest of the United States and, arguably, the world. But take a closer look. Beneath the year 2001, near the lower right edge of the coin, lies something that numismatists know to examine first: the mint mark. If you see a tiny P on the coin, that means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the two major facilities that produced the New York State quarter. The other, of course, being the Denver Mint, denoted by a D. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 655 million New York quarters in 2001. With numbers that high, you might be wondering, what could possibly make one of them worth $107? Well, here's where the real story begins. It's in these moments that the 2001 New York quarter becomes more than metal. It becomes memory, nostalgia, history, legacy. It's this hidden value that continues to fascinate people. And when it comes to pricing, rarity meets condition in a dance of market dynamics. While most 2001 quarters in worn condition are worth about 25 to 50 cents, high-grade, uncirculated versions, particularly those with verified errors or gem-quality details, can command astonishing prices. And that brings us to our highlight today: a verified 2001 New York State quarter, Philadelphia Mint, in near pristine condition, graded professionally, sold recently for a whopping $107 at an online auction. It wasn't gold. It wasn't diamond-studded. It was just exceptionally well preserved, and rare in that condition. Let that sink in. A 25-cent coin. Sold for over 400 times its face value. Imagine having a handful of these tucked away somewhere in a coin jar, overlooked for years, only to discover one day that you might be sitting on a small fortune. This isn't just about profit. It's about discovery. It's about learning that everyday objects can hold extraordinary stories. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the joy of knowledge, and the quiet satisfaction of preserving a piece of history. So what should you do if you think you have a 2001 New York P quarter? First, handle it carefully. Avoid touching the surfaces directly. Oils from your skin can degrade the metal over time. Use gloves if possible. Next, inspect it closely for visible errors, misalignments, doubling, unusual finishes, or any oddity that seems out of place. Then, consider its condition. Is the coin shiny and mark-free? Or does it show signs of wear and tear? If you think it might be in mint state or have a rare error, you may want to submit it for professional grading. Yes, there's a cost involved, but for coins with the potential to fetch over $100, it could be well worth the investment. And even if you don't strike gold, so to speak, you've still taken a step into a fascinating world. A world where pocket change becomes collectible treasure. Where coins are not just currency, but chronicles, because at the end of the day, this coin, the 2001 New York quarter, represents more than just a monetary transaction. It's a microcosm of America. Of freedom, resilience, innovation, and craftsmanship. From the Statue of Liberty standing tall to the faint P below, every detail tells a tale. I remember the first time I held one in my hand. It was a mild, sunlit afternoon at a local coin show. There it lay in a velvet-finished tray, shading its metallic luster, the inscription, 1988 P, catching a halo of light. This isn't just a quarter. This is a tiny piece of American history, whispering stories of the late 20th century, of commemorations and transitions, of artistry and minting mastery. As I held that coin, I was struck not only by its gleaming surfaces but by the layers of meaning packed into its modest size. Picture America in 1988, the end of a decade defined by dynamic politics, technological hopes, and cultural shifts. Ronald Reagan was wrapping up his second term. Just Say No had echoed through towns across the nation, and the Berlin Wall still stood tall, but would fall just a year later. It was a vibrant, swirling era, full of confidence and expectation. Against this backdrop, everyday Americans reached for their wallets, and among the coins spinning and clinking was the Roosevelt quarter, bearing the legacy of a president from another time. The design story stretches back decades. F.E.B. Wells drafted the original Roosevelt design in 1938, crafted to memorialize Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away the previous year. Roosevelt had guided the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. The quarter would forever honor him and his long association with the fight against polio, especially poignant, as FDR had been stricken himself. Starting in 1948, the quarters bore his profile, his hair swept back, his chin set firm, a gaze forward. And on the reverse, John R. Sinnock's design featured an olive branch nestled between an oak branch and a torch, symbols of peace, strength, and liberty. It was as if the nation offered its ideals in bronze glow metal form. So when that design entered its 40th year in production by 1988, it had become a familiar face in the hands of infants, teenagers, parents, and grandparents. Generations had flipped it to see whether it was heads or tails. Yet within that ubiquity lay subtle variations, tiny differences between mints and years that captivated collectors. And among those, the 1988 P quarter took on a quiet, special note. Historically, the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that P, had originally not placed its mint mark on quarters. Those early Roosevelt quarters, 1948 to 1964, didn't carry one. Only the Denver and San Francisco issues did. But in 1980, as the Mint standardized mint marking across its facilities, Philadelphia coins started carrying the P. For a casual spender, that P is easy to gloss over, but for a numismatist, it's a clue, a signpost. That's why even a small, modern-seeming coin commands attention. 1988 quarters, like most modern coins, were minted by the millions. Philadelphia struck over 2.65 billion Roosevelt quarters that year. Count them on yellow-orange lights, rows upon rows of shimmering, identical discs pouring into the vast halls of the mint. With numbers that immense, you'd think no one quarter could be rare. Yet rarity doesn't exist only in quantity, it exists in quality. A single 1988 P quarter that emerges unblemished, with full mint luster, sharp strike, and perfect surfaces, might quietly stand out in the sea of billions. That's where collector appeal blooms. Now, let me weave you a vivid memory. A seasoned collector influenced me. He pulled a slabbed quarter from his album. It was 1988 P, graded MS67. The label gleamed with authority. I looked at it under bright gallery lighting. The fields danced with iridescent toning, pastel auroras shimmering like a soap bubble in midday. I looked at another, graded MS68, where the mint luster was like frost under morning sun, immaculate, untouched, mesmerizing. It was then that numbers turn into stories, and value into wonder. Let's trace the minting specifics. The Philadelphia Mint used hubbing and die creation methods just as in other years, but each die carried slight peculiarities. Some show die polishing lines around FDR's ear, others have faint die scratches in the fields. Die luster patterns vary, some coins have radial flow lines, others don't. Collectors hunt for those subtle signatures. Some even collect by strike quality, off-center strikes, double die obverse, though those are rare in 1988 quarters, and command premiums. Now let's talk value. In the fast-moving market of 2025, recent auction records, dealer listings, and PCGS realized price data converge around a number that makes the coin world sit up: $114. That's not a guess. That's where a coveted 1988 P Roosevelt quarter, in pristine, premium grade, is trading today. Imagine that simple disc, minted nearly 4 decades ago, quietly transformed into an object worth more than its face value by a factor exceeding 450. There's a magic in that. And when I say, the big reveal, here it is, that gleaming, everyday coin is now, and I want to make this dramatic, the current collector value is $114. So next time you see a 1988 quarter, pause. Notice the P. Reflect on the man immortalized in metal, on commerce and history intertwined, on mint luster and collector passion. Because from the ordinary spins a story, and within that story, a quarter can become extraordinary, worth $114, if only someone cares enough to look. Let's take a trip back to the late 1990s, a time when the United States Mint decided to do something truly special, something that hadn't been done before at such a massive scale in American coinage history. In 1999, the U.S. Mint launched what would become one of the most popular coin programs ever, the 50 State Quarters program. The idea was simple, yet brilliant, to honor each of the 50 U.S. states with a unique design on the reverse of the $quarter coin. Now, today we're going to focus on one particular coin that kicked off this entire program, the 1999 Delaware State Quarter. But not just any Delaware quarter. We're diving deep into the story of the rare 1999 Delaware quarter featuring the Roosevelt Mint mark, a fascinating error or anomaly that has sparked the interest of collectors across the country. Before we explore the value of this coin, and yes, it's been sold for as high as $136. Let's journey into its background and understand why this piece of metal is turning heads more than 2 decades after it was minted. It all begins in the year 1787. That year, Delaware made history as the first state to ratify the United States Constitution. It earned the nickname, the First State, a title that would later become an essential feature on the design of the Delaware quarter. Fast forward to 1999, and that historical moment would be immortalized on the very first coin released under the State Quarters program. When the U.S. Mint introduced the series, they released 5 quarters per year in the order that each state joined the Union. Delaware, of course, was number 1. It's fitting that the very first state was also the first to be honored in this unique numismatic journey. Enter the Roosevelt Mint mark. Now, let's clear something up. U.S. quarters do not typically have a Roosevelt Mint mark. In fact, Franklin D. Roosevelt appears only on the dime. So, when collectors